our opening song, 349, We Gather Together. We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and jubilation, wind-bound to human care and hope. Then we are free.
Welcome to the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara, our spiritual home and community of faith, where we support each other on our journey through life. We are all on a great migration to the light. May we renew our energies here and take comfort and inspiration from the simple fact that we are together. Good morning, everybody. I'm Peter Hale, member of your worship arts team, who, along with Reverend Elizabeth Green, Sarah Davis, Charla, Heather, John, Matthew, and the choir are your hosts for this morning's service. I trust you've enjoyed a happy Thanksgiving, whether with family or friends or solo. These are the days we set aside to count our blessings and express gratitude to the society for this lovely town that we live in and all the memories and personal connections that make life worth living and worth trusting. There's been a lot of talk lately about a distinct lack of trust, and I had to think long and hard about that because I don't feel it here. Within these walls, I don't feel any lack of trust. My living is based on trust. Like many of you, I perform a service and I expect to get paid. And in 25 years of doing my business, I have never been let down. Without trust in one another, our entire system would collapse. I think it's beyond ourselves, beyond these walls, where trust seems to have gone missing. Technology that can manipulate reality, a distrust of media that on the one hand presents us with enhanced images of things to enjoy and then reports mostly depressing news. This dissonance creates unease. Our individual trust dissipates in bureaucracy. Our voices and expectations go unheard and manipulated. These incidents, these disappointments are cumulative, and they add up to a scenario of distrust and cynicism. So it's between us, the personal we'll be talking about today, how trust is created, how it's regained, and what we can do to make our world a more trustworthy place. We'll have an announcement from the board by Kyle.
Good morning to you all. My name is Kyle Stewart. I am a member of your Board of Trustees and previously served on the Anti-Racism Commission of that board. When this series of reflections on our Bridge to the Future capital campaign was proposed to the board and we were asked to sign up for a topic, I knew that I was going to dance with Thomas Jefferson yet again. Many of you likely remember the campaign to rename both the Jefferson Window and building in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and the congregational adoption of the 8th principle in support of anti-racism. I was deeply involved in that campaign. Our Unitarian forebears honored Jefferson because he authored the Declaration of Independence with its claim that all men are created equal. The Board of Trustees decided to remove his name because he also enslaved an estimated 600 human beings over the course of his life, including many of his own children with the enslaved Sally Hemings. This tension in his legacy generated a large controversy at the 1993 General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association when GA included a costume ball themed on Thomas Jefferson. One attendee, Hope Johnson, read a statement on behalf of concerned delegates that asked if UUs were to wear a period costume for the ball, quote, "Must African Americans attend such events in rags and chains?" She referred to the incident as the TJ Ball to avoid honoring the man. I highly recommend reading the 25-year retrospective article in the UU World online archives. UUSB also experienced some controversy around TJ when the Board of Trustees voted to remove his name and notified the congregation. There were concerns among some members that such a decision should be undertaken by the entire congregation, not just the board. We had a community town hall to listen to one another's points of view and to hear concerns around this change. That meeting was held in TJ Hall, and I think really embodied the tension that surrounds both the positive and negative aspects of grappling with his legacy. Ultimately, the board decided to put the issue to a congregational vote. The congregation overwhelmingly agreed to remove TJ's name from both the window and the building. A majority voted to rename the window in honor of the abolitionist and suffragist Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Her name will be added in TJ's place when the windows are repaired and re-leaded as part of this campaign. The board will soon be announcing the process for the congregation to rename the building, and my dance with TJ will have some new steps. While names are undoubtedly important, the capital campaign focuses primarily on upgrading the physical infrastructure of our beautiful campus. Many aspects of the campus and our sanctuary stir the soul, but I think most would agree that TJ Hall does not. The word frumpy comes to mind. I've heard Reverend Julia refer to it as utilitarian. I've spent a lot of time in TJ Hall over the last year hosting connection circles. While I've greatly enjoyed the people and the connections that I've discovered there, the room makes for a rather bleak backdrop. Between the flickering lights and the rec hall aesthetic, the space feels spiritually deadening. As I'm considering this more, perhaps naming the space after our third president was something of a backhanded compliment. I am very glad that TJ Hall will be one of the central focuses for our Bridge to the Future campaign. Many of you provided your insights and your dreams for the congregation as part of the visioning process of our capital campaign. Thank you for your time and your love of this congregation. Thank you in advance for the support I know many of you will provide to realize a new and improved vision of our campus. Based on feedback from you all, the building team and our architects have been hard at work designing a new and spiritually enriching space to replace TJ Hall. Possible goals including opening the space up to make it more integrated with the rest of the campus, redesigning the interior to feel more sacred and less stultifying, and hopefully including a much-needed bathroom and possibly a kitchenette. More details will be revealed at the December 15th Town Hall meeting, and I invite you all to attend. I love the thought of improving this space. It is heavily used by a variety of community groups. I am hopeful that by investing in making the space feel more connected and sacred, we might be more inviting for those who come through our doors throughout the week to also feel like joining our community more regularly. I am hopeful that by changing the name from a famous slaveholder to something more in line with our values, we can invite even more people in. I am hopeful that my children will also use this space in order to deepen their connection to our community. I am hopeful that despite the darker aspects of our American legacy, we can continue to cultivate love in our society. Thank you for joining me in this work.
We have just a few more announcements. The main one is the Alliance is meeting on next Friday, December 6th, and it's going to be a celebration of St. Nicholas Day. There's going to be food, there's going to be music, and it's a once in a year event. So please make some time to come to that. Also, there'll be our usual Christmas Eve services, 3. And how many of you have been to our pancake breakfasts that we've had? All right, but I'd like to see more of you next time we have them, which will be December 29th, Sunday. We'll say goodbye to the old year and say hello to the new one. Please make a note of it on your calendars.
As we light our chalice this morning, if you're participating from home, type "chalice is lit" and the name of your street into the chat box so that its combined radiance can illuminate and warm our community and the world. The light of life shines through each and every person. The light of truth shines through each life. May the light of the flame remind us that our search for light and truth is ongoing and renewed by every person we meet. May we know the light within each other.
Every Sunday, we share one good thing that we've either observed or experienced. And this Sunday, I'm tempted to say that my one good thing is that the season of pumpkin spice is over. But perhaps more relevant to our theme today, I want to share with you a memory from just a few weeks ago, Election Day, November 6th, was it? 5th, 6th? Thomas and I typically run one of the polling stations here in Santa Barbara, and this year it was at the McKinley School. And the supervisors tell us, put away your cell phones, do not check your cell phones, but I couldn't help myself. I had to check and see how things were going, and they didn't seem to be going well, and I was getting a little distraught. But then, kind of midway through the evening, a couple came in with apparently their daughter, and I handed them their alternative language ballots. And then they went and just sat down, and I could see that they were discussing everything that was on the ballot. They would talk amongst themselves, sometimes they'd shake their heads, sometimes they'd nod, and the daughter would explain things on the ballot. And they spent 45 minutes going over each and everything on the ballot. And then they went to cast their vote. That felt great. It gave me hope for the future. As long as we have citizens like that, thoughtful and responsible, I think we'll be all right. And this is the first Sunday of the month, and you all know what we do on the first Sunday of the month. We honor those who have their birthday in this month, the month of December. So,
Use your Amazon because that's how things were going last time.
I have a nephew who was born on Christmas Day.
Oh, I thought you meant like the plastic one.
Of course, he only gets one set of presents a year.
Hi, everyone. So welcome all of you December birthdays. As we traditionally do, I'm going to pass this microphone down, and you can tell us the date of your birthday. It's optional for you to tell us the number of years you have accumulated, but we hope you'll own them with pride. So I'm going to pass this down, starting with Sylvia.
Yes, what do you want? The name, Sylvia Abwali, 1212. That's my birthday.
I'm Tim Pettit, and I was born on December 29th, 1959, which is kind of a New Year baby, and I will be 65 in 1923.
I'm Sarah Davis. I was born on December 5th, and I'm going to be 40.
Hi, I'm Chris. December 11, 1975. Also point out my son Jasper, who's down in daycare. He'll be 5 on Christmas Eve. So if you see him running around, please wish him happy birthday. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brent. December 17th, and I'll be 28.
I'm Randine. My birthday is December 26th, and I'll be 41.
My name is Brock. My birthday is December 5th. I'll be 41.
Hello, I'm Sally Hinton. On Christmas Day, I'll be 85.
Hi, I'm Becky Blake. I'll be 74 on December 16th.
We are grateful that you all are born, that you are part of this congregation. You light up our lives. We just wouldn't be the same without you. So happy birthday to all of you. Can we wish them all a happy birthday? It is our time for all ages. I have seen a lot of people under 4 feet tall wandering around in here this morning, so I hope they will come up and join me. Simon and Dylan and all of you folks in the back, come up and join me for our story. Leo is here today. Wonderful to see you all. Look at them all. Here they come. Wonderful. How many of you have ever, like when you go out to recess, or and all of you too, if you go someplace where maybe you don't really know anyone and you're feeling a little shy and you don't know what to do and you feel kind of uncomfortable? Has that ever happened to you? You go out to recess, or you go, I hate to say it, but maybe even to coffee hour, and you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to and it's a little awkward. Has that happened to anyone before? Only one person in the whole room. I don't believe that for a minute. Well, I have a story this morning about, based on a true story about a school that came up, actually it was a child who came up with a really great solution to that problem. It's called the Buddy Bench. Put that down. Class dismiss, called Miss Mellon when the recess bell rang. Her students ran out, one loud, happy gang. They didn't waste time. Recess was too short. They started right in with their games and their sport. Some boys climbed a mound playing King of the Hill, but though he stood near, not one noticed Will. Molly said to Brianna, let's play Follow the Leader. They walked right by Emma, but just didn't see her. As Cooper watched hide and seek from a tree, he thought to himself, why does no one seek me? 3 kids played soldier with a make-believe fort as Sloan looked on from the basketball court. 7 kids were clowns and they acted quite silly. They paraded right past, but no one saw Lily. Jerome watched 4 kids playing blind man's bluff. Why can't they see me? Aren't I big enough? 3 boys played with kites that flew high in the air, while Gabe sat and wondered, doesn't anyone care? Then one dancing kite dropped out of the sky, and when Jake went to find it, Gabe held it high. Want to join us? Jake asked before recess is done. How come you're just watching? That can't be much fun. It's my leg, said Gabe. Gabe has a cast on his leg. I can't run in a cast, so I never get picked, not even last. Come play with us anyway, there's time to spare. Wait a minute, said Gabe, I'll be right there. Gabe hobbled to Will and tapped his shoulder. Come and join us, he said, before recess is over. I'm new here, said Will, and today's my first day. No one but you has asked me to play. Well, help us keep this kite in the air. Okay, said Will, I'll be right there. Then Will went to Emma, and Emma to Sloane, each asking the next why she was alone. There are holes in my pants and my shoes, Emma said. I don't fit in, and her face turned bright red. It's hard, said Sloane, to know what to say. I'm too scared to ask, but I do want to play. Come join us, said Will. There's no time to spare. Wait, said the girls, we'll be right there. They ran over to Cooper and said, what about you? We're going to have fun. Can't you play too? When I talk, explained Cooper, my words get tangled. What I want to say ends up all mangled. So what? Come and play, the two girls said. I'll come in a minute. You go on ahead. Then Cooper asked Lily, and Lily asked Jerome, how come each of them was alone? Lily told Cooper, it's always the same. I'm just used to watching. I'm no good at games. When you're small, said Jerome, and the game is all tied, nobody wants you to be on their side. Come and play, Cooper said. Don't hang back and wait. Let's make some new friends. It's never too late. But recess was over. The bell rang once more, and Miss Mellon's students ran for the door. Miss Mellon, Will asked, how could we say, without using words, that we all want to play? Sometimes we're too shy, too sad, or too proud. How can we ask without asking out loud? Miss Mellon thought, and then she said, what you need is a seat to wait for a friend or a buddy to meet. A buddy bench, Miss Mellon's class all agreed, and we'll make it ourselves, Cooper decreed. So they borrowed a hammer, a saw, and a wrench and started to work on their own special bench. When it was finished, they were all filled with pride. Each child wore a smile that was 9 inches wide. We think it's just perfect, the students all said, with hands that are colored blue, yellow, and red. They have handprints on the bench. They put their new bench in the very best place, under the climbing tree, right at its base. Now everyone knows when they're feeling left out, where to find friends without any doubt. And the words on the bench that they made on their own say, buddy bench equals nobody alone. And that's the end of our story for today. And I'm going to ask Dylan to take it back to the class with you with Janie as we sing our children out for their program this morning.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go, to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
I have one more thing to do this morning. A couple of Sundays ago, 9th, 8th, and 9th graders finished up an, I think, 11-week Our Whole Lives, or OWL program. For those of you who don't know what OWL is, it is a comprehensive human sexuality education program co-created by the Unitarian Universalist Association and the United Church of Christ some years back. As it says on the UUA website, OWL provides honest, accurate information about sexuality. And I lost my place, sorry. It dismantles stereotypes and assumptions, builds self-acceptance and self-esteem, fosters healthy relationships, improves decision-making, and has the potential to save lives. The UUA and UCC have curriculum for kindergarten all the way through older adulthood. We cannot provide this important programming here at USSB without dedicated volunteers. In order to be an OWL facilitator, volunteers must complete comprehensive training and stay current on curriculum updates, Sessions are usually about an hour and a half long, with a fair amount of time spent preparing for each session. I would like to honor the 4 OWL facilitators who gave their time this fall to provide this life-saving program to our youth. And I don't know if any of them except one are here, but I'm going to talk about them anyway. Oh, great. I'm going to talk about them. Christina Boardman. I don't think Christina's here today. Christina is our youth group coordinator, and she is passionate about LGBTQ+ rights and inclusion, and eagerly went through the OWL training and certification just this fall so she could be a facilitator. Chrissy Cable. Chrissy, are you here this morning? No. Chrissy is a high school teacher at Dos Pueblos and a longtime OWL facilitator for this congregation. Chrissy considers OWL facilitation to be one of the most significant ways she can give back to this congregation. Woodwin Coons, who is here. Can you stand, Woodwin? Thank you. Woodwin is a psychotherapist with a focus on gender and sexuality. This was her first time facilitating OWL, and her knowledge and experience were a welcome addition to our team. And finally, Kyle Stewart. Kyle is a high school teacher at Santa Barbara High, as well as a member of the board here at USSB, facilitator of connection circles, and I don't know what else you do, Kyle, but a lot of things here. And working with teens all week, Kyle sees the need for this kind of programming in our community. So please join me in expressing gratitude to these volunteers for giving their time, their knowledge, and their heart connection to this work to our youth this fall.
Every once in a while, not in every service, but every once in a while, we set aside a minute or two for silence. I think that's particularly appropriate this time of year as we go into the frenzy of the holiday season. And in the silence, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to be, there's nothing to think about. It's just something to be aware of. And in silence, we see the crazy ideas and thoughts that stream through our heads constantly. We only become aware of when we're in silence. So let's spend just a minute together in silence.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Davis. Those of you who know me probably know that I'm a teacher and a parent. You just saw my kiddos helping out with the stickers and lighting the chalice. And when planning for this reflection, I considered how fundamental trust is when taking care of children. I started by thinking about how infants have to completely rely on their caregivers for everything. And that's a level of trust I didn't fully understand until caring for my own babies. My husband and Kyle and I actually had a moment of panic in the hospital right after Dylan was born. He was checked in and washed, and the nurses did everything. And then they handed him over and left the three of us alone in the room together. And Dylan instantly started sobbing, like that screaming newborn wail, and there was no instruction manual. We assured ourselves that the medical professionals trusted us enough to leave us alone with our own baby so we could probably figure it out. And we've managed pretty well so far. As Kyle likes to point out, there is no return policy. Then there's also the trust of a guardian who hands their precious child over to another for care. Again, I didn't truly appreciate this until I sent Dylan and then Simon off to daycare and now elementary school. I know that I will not be able to teach them everything they need to know in order to be successful adults, and I have to trust others, including members of this congregation, to teach them what they need. I find myself each year hoping that their teachers, both formal and informal, will see what special kids they are and will love them as much as we do. At the very least, I trust that their teachers will treat them with kindness and respect. I believe there is no better way to learn about building trust than spending time with children. I've been working with kids since I was in high school. I did babysitting, camp counseling, substitute teaching, and for the past 12 years, I've worked as a third grade teacher at Roosevelt Elementary School. Go Rattlesnakes. By the time students reach my class, they're around 8 years old, and they know enough not to trust anyone blindly, and they sometimes need a little bit of convincing. I once had a student ask me how to spell through, and I responded, T-H-R-O-U-G-H, and he looked at me and he said, no. And it took a little while. I had to explain that the English language has lots of rules and spelling breaks most of them at some point before he was willing to write it down. I found that building trust with my class early in the year is essential. Every August, I am given a list with about 25 names, and I don't get to pick and choose. Those kids are mine for the year. I have had students who are reading at a 6th grade level alongside students who are still working on their letter sounds. I have students who count on their fingers to figure out 3 plus 4 in the same class as students who are ready to compute the interest on a 5-year loan. I have had students who have emotional disturbance and are diagnosed with learning disabilities, as well as students who are not diagnosed but show all the symptoms of ADHD or dyslexia. I have students who come from extreme poverty and students who come from extreme privilege, students with separated families, multilingual families, students who have been the victims of abuse or neglect, students in foster care, students with single parents, step-parents, bonus parents, gay parents, and highly, highly, highly protective parents. I've also had students who go to conservative church every Sunday and students who celebrate pagan holidays. This year, I have students whose families voted for Trump and students whose families voted for Harris. Or more importantly to them, Dodger fans and Yankee fans. For my students to learn, they need to trust me. They need to trust that I will not embarrass them or single them out, that I will honor mistakes as a path to learning and answer their questions without making them feel stupid for asking, that I will explain things clearly and help them understand. They also need to trust each other. They need to be able to work together and share ideas without being shut down. At the beginning of the year, I spend a lot of time doing team building activities. We practice giving opinions and I teach them how to agree and disagree respectfully. And if you want to get a really lively discussion going, ask third graders their least favorite food. Every year I teach my class that they do not have to be friends, but they do have to get along. It can be a messy process and we have to keep working on it. I'm not perfect. Earlier this year, I had a night when one of my sons woke me up repeatedly and I did not get enough sleep and I was a little cranky. And that afternoon, my class was unfocused and not following directions and I yelled at them to sit down now. And the looks of shocks on their faces made me realize that I had broken their trust. I apologized and explained that I was tired and frustrated and cranky. And one of my students raised her hand and she says, "It's okay, Miss Davis. My mom does that too." We were able to move on, and they were actually better behaved afterwards. Part of trust is being able to make mistakes and forgive. Right now, it feels like the trust in our greater society is fractured. My hope is that we'll be able to see each other the way I see my students and the way that I try to teach them to see each other. I want us all to understand that everyone began as someone's child and deserves that level of love and care. I hope we'll be able to find a way to trust each other enough that we can get along and learn and move forward together. Thanks, Peter.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Green. I live in Santa Barbara for pieces of time at a time, and then go back to Boise, Idaho, where I am the Minister Emerita of the Boise UU congregation. And my story is about fall and redemption. In terms that are more relevant to our Unitarian Universalist theologies, straying from the good and finding a way back. My story is about trust lost and trust regained. I had my children, Betsy and Scott, when I was 16 and 17. Their father disappeared. But I had so much help. Back to the arms of my family, which was my single mother and 3 younger siblings, from where I went to junior college, and then with the help of a scholarship and California Aid to Dependent Children and working at my children's daycare, we moved to Redwood City and I went to Stanford. Thank you. I got my bachelor's and master's degrees, and I began my 21-year teaching career of high school drama and English. The kids and I were a tight little unit in those days, looking forward to our once-a-month payday splurge at the A&W Root Beer, Mama Burgers and Papa Burgers and Baby Burgers, our almost weekly picnics in a nice park in Palo Alto. We were very scheduled and extremely busy, but we never missed the bedtime story, and we're pretty much always together. Trust was just a fact of life. And now comes the fall part, which is harder to talk about. This is about how it was with Betsy and me, who had always been pretty close. My story with Scott is different enough, even though there are similarities, that it would need another time for that story. Just about as my kids were entering teenagehood, I discovered that I really liked to drink. Not just liked to, but needed to, and thank God that had not happened earlier. So I drank alcoholically, off and on for the next several years. As I progressed, I predictably behaved as addicts do, sneaking around, forgetting all kinds of things that were important to other people, lying, behaving erratically and embarrassingly. In other words, being a person you could not trust, someone who probably wouldn't have your back, or maybe would have your back one day and forget to the next. I was by no means a trustworthy person with my erratic ways, my undependability, and my blackouts. One day, in mid-June of 1982, Betsy came to my house clearly filled with nervousness and trepidation. She was a very young adult. She asked me if I was drinking during the day, and I actually miraculously answered honestly and said yes. Now remember, I was teaching high school at the time. She asked if I had considered a treatment program, which I had not. I entered Care Unit Hospital in Redmond, Washington on June 29th. I came out a month later, and one day at a time, with the grace of God, I have been in recovery since. But wait, there's a little more. Of course, everyone was so happy. It is redemption, that old theological word, stepping back toward the good. It was a miracle for all of us. And it turns out to be more complicated than that. I had to work the steps, which is Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps, which are wonderful. It involves facing oneself in a painfully honest way, and remember what all the terrible things I have been doing, sharing that with my sponsor, making amends to the people I had hurt, and continuing on that spiritual path for the rest of my life as best I can. There are some who have gone to their graves unable to forgive me. But Betsy has not chosen to walk that road. It wasn't as though she could suddenly move into deep trust for the mother who had let her down so. Several years into my sobriety, she was probably starting to trust enough to do this. She realized how hurt she still was, which was awful for me. Now, with the help of trusted Alcoholics Anonymous friends, I reined in my defensiveness. I hoped for her forgiveness, knowing that I had no right to expect it. But real redemption happened as a result of love, commitment to change, and a truly honest life. When I was actually in the hospital, I made the decision to change my vocation, to leave teaching and become a Unitarian Universalist minister. I have loved the UU ministry, and I hope that it has helped me continue practicing the lessons that began in that June and July of 1982. I served the Boise congregation for 25 years. And I am deeply, deeply grateful for the many relationships I have there still of love and integrity and trust. Most importantly, over time, trust between my dear daughter and me returned, deep and solid and loving and dependable. She has always been trustworthy, of course, and she gradually, after facing her demons about me and after I had done a lot of work, we refound that faithful trust. 3.5 years ago, when I was laid low with awful grief at the death of my husband, Betsy, who lives in Australia, video called me every single day for 1.5 years. We still video call 2 or 3 times a week. We have a lot of fun now. The earnest stuff is pretty much over. And we both also know now an unshakable fact. We will always have each other's back in love and in trust. Generosity is a cardinal virtue of the Unitarian Universalist faith. Each Sunday, we designate 25% of our offering to a worthy organization that reflects our UU values and principles, and we do this in Boise also. This month here, it is Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, and you can read all about them and the good work they are doing in the order of service. So will you please read with me our affirmation of gratitude and giving? And may I say, I am grateful for you folks as a congregation. I had some trepidation. You're strangers to me by and large. And I so appreciate your attention. I can feel the love. Thank you. All right, let's read our affirmation of gratitude and giving. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
how do we encourage trust in the world and in ourselves? Just when you think you can trust your experience and your judgment, life throws you a curveball, or in this case, a pie. Donis and I were in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, at the beginning of September for the annual Balloon Festival, a worldwide event, wonderful. We stayed with some friends of ours there in Albuquerque and had a great time for 5 days, I think. And as we were leaving to go down to the train station, our host said, well, you know, we have to go out to brunch. You know, we have to go to this particular restaurant. It's Tex-Mex. You'll love it. I said, I don't really like Tex-Mex. I don't like peppers. I don't like jalapenos. I don't like spices. I said, well, you know, you can moderate that. You just come to the restaurant. It's great food. So we went, and it was a wonderful experience, but I was looking forward to the dessert because when we had first walked into the restaurant, right in front is a huge display case full of pastries, pies, all kinds of things, cupcakes, donuts, and right in the middle was this beautiful apple pie. And I love apple pie. And I hadn't had any in a long time, so I thought, all right, I'll get some apple pie for dessert. So all through the meal, I was looking forward to this. Meal's over, the waitress brings out a perfectly sliced wedge of apple pie. It's beautiful. And I take a bite, and I go, oh, there's something not right about this pie. What is it? So I had another bite, and it tasted like gasoline. My mouth was burning, and my throat was getting constricted. And Brian, our host, waves over the waitress, and he says, what's going on? He's having a hard time. And I said, what's in this pie? And she says, oh, well, it's filled with jalapenos. And I said, what? Who does that to an apple pie? You don't put jalapenos in apple pie. I said, well, we do. This is Albuquerque. This is what we do. Not sure what the moral of this story is. You can't be on your guard forever and for everything. You just have to do as Reverend Julia advises us to do. Be gentle with yourself and with this beautiful, heartbreaking world. And my heart was broken with that apple pie for sure. And you just have to deal with all these jalapeno apple pies that come your way. Another thing you can do is put your trust in a particular person. Put your life at stake, possibly, and at least your well-being. Many, many years ago, when our daughter was maybe 6 years old, I got as a birthday present a hang gliding ride off the peak up above. And because I had said at some point in the past, well, I would really love to do that. But when the time came to drive up there and do that, I was scared to death. And such a small town as Santa Barbara, Donis was selling her motorcycle several months ago. And I was talking to the guy who was buying it. And I said, I know you, don't I? I know you. I said, you're the pilot of the hang gliding ride that we took, this must have been 30 years ago. He says, yeah, and I remember you. You were the guy who was weeping in terror before we took off. But you know, it just reminds me that we take for granted, we put our trust in so much. You know, you're getting surgery, you're trusting the surgeon and the team. You fly an airplane. Do we think much about the pilot and the crew and all the hundreds of people that go into making that experience successful? No, we don't. But it often means that the group is smarter than you are. And I'm so happy to have heard about Sarah's experience teaching, because it reminded me, and this is one of the things I do to make the world a more trustworthy place. I remember incidences that have happened in my life that have proved that the world is a trustworthy place. And one of them is the most profound experience I've had at this society. When Remy was 7 or 8 years old. She was old enough to start religious education programs. And so I thought, well, what a great idea. I'll teach her class. Now, I have never taught anybody. I had never taught a class. But it just seemed like a good idea. And fortunately, I was paired up with a wonderful lady, Linda Hanna, who was around at that time. And so everything went well. She just kind of took over and handled the kids, and I helped out, did the craft projects and stuff. Well, the next year, I was alone. And again, I had this wonderful idea, just a wonderful, wonderful idea. Instead of reading to the kids in a circle, we'd sit down, I would have them read to each other. We'd pick out a book, and we'd just pass this book around, and each child would read a page. Brilliant, huh? Well, we got to the middle child, and I could see that she was in distress because she had dyslexia, and she couldn't read as a normal child at that age would read. So she was struggling, and she was turning red, and I was afraid, oh no, she's going to burst into tears any moment. I thought, what a disaster, and this was my idea. What am I going to do? But I didn't have to do anything. The kids just took over. The girl next to her whispered something in her ear, gave her the word, and she continued on. And when she stopped again, the boy next to her leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and one by one, they all came over and helped her read that page of the book. I couldn't believe it. It was just a wonderful experience, and it made me realize that we can trust the next generation for sure. But there's another kind of trust, or lack of it, that I've been grappling with. Trust in tomorrow. The news is dire, and I don't need to elaborate. The world's in a mess, and it underlies so much of the anxiety that's being acted out these days. Now that we have a grandchild, I feel responsible for the future, to somehow make tomorrow better than today. But how? Donis and I give generously to any number of worthy organizations. We gift this society and make our opinions known. I have the privilege of speaking here every once in a while. And Donis does charitable work around town. But I felt I needed to do more, to act and interact on a one-to-one basis with people directly. So around this time last year, I started out with the most basic thing I could think of, to consciously greet everyone that I encountered. Give them my full attention. Look in their eyes, smile, take their hand if it was offered. This might not sound like much, but it requires constant focus when engaging with anyone. Friends or the checkout girl at Sprouts. It's a discipline. It feels good, especially if you get a smile in return. At the beginning of this year, I upped the ante a little bit. I realized I had a whole bunch of credit cards that I've been collecting for the travel miles, and it was getting unwieldy. I couldn't keep track of it anymore. Plus, these things all have annual fees. So I said, all right, I'm going to get rid of all these cards and keep one. And I looked at my monthly expenses, and I figured, well, I'll just carry enough cash around to get through the month and just pay cash for things. Don't need a credit card. So I'm at the post office on Upper Milpas, and there's a girl sitting out front on the sidewalk, and she has a little dog next to her. I think it was a Chihuahua. It was small, it had a little Mexican sombrero on, and it had a sign in front of the dog that said, "Help my mom." And the girl, who must have been 20, 21, She also had a sign that said, "Evicted, please help me." And something about that struck me. You see signs that people have around, please help, this, that, or the other thing, out of work, blah, blah, blah. This was not a generic call for help. She wanted me to help her personally. So I stuck around and chatted with her for a while. She had some gifts that she was giving out on a blanket in front of her. And so I gave her $20. And she said, "Well, all right, now here's something for you." And it was a plastic Harley Davidson ring, because she saw me drive up on my motorcycle. She said, "This is for you." Okay. So now this is what I've been doing this year, and I've probably given away maybe $150, $175 so far. And I don't just give it away willy-nilly, it's just anybody on the street. I give it to people who I can engage with, who still have the ability to look you in the eye, who can smile. Last week, I was coming to the service, and there was a gentleman sitting on the bench on this side of the side gate, and he looked a little downtrodden, and I was carrying a bunch of magazines for the little library over there, and but he looked at me. He looked at me directly. His eyes were bright, and he managed to smile. And I said, "Good morning," and he says, "Good morning to you." So I sat down on the bench, I said, "What's up with you?" He says, "Well, I'm traveling, I lost my job. I'm just passing through town, And we chatted for about 5 minutes. I gave him $10. And the magazines, because I saw him looking at the magazines. He says, "Oh, that's my favorite magazine." Okay, you can take the magazines. I don't know what items I'll be adding to my repertoire next year. I have a few ideas, but there'll be more than just smiling and giving people some spare money. Because I think this is the way we develop our trust with other people and in the world, by direct contact, one-to-one, being in the room, just like we're in this room. If I don't have an opportunity to chat with you before the end of the year, I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish you all a meaningful and happy holiday season. Our closing hymn is number 318, "We Would Be One." And when we're done singing, please remain standing, hold hands for our closing words and closing song.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
Well, this just feels wonderful, just standing here together. I think it was the guru, Sai Baba, who said, before you speak, make sure what you're going to say improves on the silence. So I don't think I want to say anything, except for amen. Can somebody say that?
Amen.
Now let's call out a blessing.
Call out a blessing, 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 call out, call out a blessing, call out.
Well, that was pretty good considering we did practice.
On mute.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay. Sharon, I'm Catherine. I want to say hello.
Hi,
And we're-
everybody.
We're
Hi,
Lorraine
it's
and Justine.
Hi, it's Justine.
All right.
Hi.
Hi, Justine.
Hi, so nice to see you all. My battery on my laptop here is running a bit low, so I only can stay a few minutes.
Okay.
But I'm still at Cottage Rehab. As you can see, I'm outside on a lovely patio. It's a beautiful day. There's in my vision here, there are citrus trees and grass and families who have come to visit their loved ones here. And it just is, and my heart is full from having just enjoyed this service and being here where I am. And it's just a beautiful day. So.
And you may get to go home on Tuesday.